Hello, my name is Tanel Kapper. I'm from Estonia, and this is my story. It started 1989, so it's more than 32 years ago now. Estonia was then occupied by the Soviet Union, and against all the international laws, the Soviet Union conscripted forcefully soldiers from the occupied countries into the army. So I was one of them, and I was taken from a school. I was studying in Tallinn Commercial Marine College. I was taken from school and sent to Siberia, to Chita, to the engineer battalion. Chita is 7,000 kilometers from Tallinn to the east. It's 1,000 kilometers east from Lake Baikal. So I did my basic training there, and then on the day when all the soldiers, the new soldiers, were obliged to take an oath, I officially refused to take an oath and serve in the Soviet army, which was, of course, quite outrageous in those days. So they put me back into barracks and thought what to do with me. While I was in the barracks, the political officer from my company came. He was absolutely drunk and attacked me. So I defended myself and hit him. He ran out, and after that I realized that I just had refused to take an oath from Soviet army and hit a political officer. So my thought was I have to do something now, and I decided to escape. I sneaked out from the barracks, climbed the fence, and went to the forest. Fortunately, I was quite good in geography in school, so I knew that in that forest there is only one railway which goes from Vladivostok, which is in Pacific Ocean, near the Pacific Ocean, towards Moscow, from east to west. So I went to that railway, turned to the west, and started walking. Quite in the beginning, it was also one Ukrainian guy with me. I don't remember his name. He was somewhere from West Ukraine. So he decided to escape with me as well. So we walked all night, and next morning we were sitting next to the railway in the middle of Siberian forest and thinking, what the hell are we actually doing? We were 18 years old. We didn't think it through when we escaped. But we said to each other, whatever happens, we'll continue. So we went on. And fortunately for us, in every 10 kilometers along the railway, it was a small hut, or looked like a bunker, but basically it was a hut. We went into one of the huts, and we discovered that there was some chairs, table, some fireplace, and some place to sleep. And most importantly, there was a closet, and in that closet there was dry bread, sugar, tea, and some dried meat. So we ate and went on. In next kilometers, 10 kilometers, yes, we passed something, 10, 15 kilometers, we find another hut like this. And the same stuff was in that hut. So we understood that these were basically huts for the railway workers who were checking the railway in the Siberian forest, as some villages may be 100 kilometers away from each other, no people around. So this was their bread and their meat, their tea and their sugar we found there. So we continued on the way like this. I think it took us a week, maybe less, when we actually went into the first bigger village on our way, which was Magzon, I think, or Hilok. Don't remember exactly the name. There were two big villages on our way. So had to go around there because the railway was guarded by civilian, not exactly civilian, but half civilian guardsmen who were retired, probably military personnel. They were armed with the World War II rifles and revolvers, and their task was basically, in the Soviet Union, as it was totalitarian regime, everything has to be guarded. So they guarded the railway stations. So we decided to avoid them, and we continued our way. So basically we then jumped on the train and traveled on the train almost 1,000 kilometers. It was a cargo train, so we wait until the train make a curve, ran into the train, climbed into the empty wagons, and went towards Irkutsk. In Irkutsk, the train stopped, we had to escape, and we were separated from each other. And I jumped another train, which take me back actually about a couple of 100 kilometers into the place called Sludanka. No, Ilok, yes. And from there I had to start it all over again. On my way, when I was alone already, I did the same trip, but I also met some people in the smaller villages. Sometimes I went away from a railway and I met the people in the smaller villages who actually were quite kind, and they were, I think they were grandsons or something from Siberian Cossacks, because I understood they didn't like this Soviet system very much. So they helped me also a little bit. So then in one day I actually met a bear in a forest. So I was next to the river washing myself, and in the other side of the river it was a Siberian bear. I was scared like hell. Probably I did my best run in my whole life. But afterwards, if I think it now, the bear was like in other side of the river, 200 or 300 meters away from me, so it was no danger. But then in 18 years old, you don't know those things. So I continued my path alone towards the west. In one moment, I actually stole a horse, which I'm not very proud of, but I really, really wanted to get a little bit quicker. So I stole a horse, and after half a day, roughly, I released the horse because I understood that if I would be caught with a horse in Siberia, it would be not very good consequences for me. So I left it. I made it to the place called Sludanka, which is 200 kilometers roughly east from a place called Irkutsk, to the big city Irkutsk, where we were already, where we were separated and ran away. And in this Irkutsk, in this Sludanka, that was a railway station where they had this spare tracks where the trains were waiting for the clearance to pass away or whatever they were doing there. But basically it was lots of trains, cargo trains, not passenger trains, cargo trains, and even I saw some steam engine locomotives there, which was very interesting for me. But there was standing a couple of refrigerator cars, and 3 cars, refrigerated cars, and 1 like technical car on the rails. So, and I managed to read that those are from the railway station Valga, which is Estonian town, South Estonia, on the border with Latvia. So I went to those cars and saw the 2 guys who were working on those cars. And as they were from Valga, Estonians, I told my story that I escaped from the Soviet army, want to go back home. So they helped me. They put me on their cars, and in 2 days we moved towards Moscow. I think it take about a week with stops to get to a place called Chelyabinsk, which is in the middle of Ural Mountains, actually half away. It's roughly about 3,000 something kilometers from Tallinn. And from there, the railway cars were turned to the south in some, I don't remember what place they had to go. Probably it was Caspian Sea. But they helped me in that way that from Chelyabinsk it was a train, passenger train, Chelyabinsk-Riga. So they actually helped me to that train. On that train it was summertime. I think it was July or August August probably, in 1989, and there was Latvian students working on that train. So Latvians, also occupied by Soviets, students, young people like me, understood me, and they hired me in their own train until Riga, which is capital of Latvia. So, and from there I managed to get back to my country, to Estonia. Of course, we were still occupied. Of course, I was a criminal on the eyes of Soviet Union for doing those things against the Soviet laws, against the Soviet system. So I had to hide myself. I hid myself on my friends' places and in Pärnu area, in the forests. And basically, I lived there in a small village in the forest and also in the city of Pärnu about half a year, when I went to see my sisters in Tallinn, who were studying in high school in Tallinn. And somehow, one of two persons, two teachers in that school saw me, one of them actually called to the Soviet police. I don't know which one of them, but I have my doubts. I won't say their names, as they both have passed away now, and I don't want anything that they, children or grandchildren, would know anything that there is any doubt that they have collaborated with the Soviet regime. But definitely one of them was very pro-communist. So anyway, I was arrested. And after I refused to make a deal with police, so that what they had in mind was that they offered me to confess some of the unsolved car hijacks, car thefts, and promised to get me in prisons in Estonia. I refused it, and they gave me over to Soviet army. I made one attempt to run away from this temporary arrest place, temporary military prison, which was in Tallinn. I think it's, I know the place in Tallinn. It's now the film museum or film archive. Estonian Film Archive is in that place now, which used to be a military prison. But as I refused it, so I was sent to after unsuccessful escape attempt, I was sent to a prison called Patarei, which was the central prison in Tallinn. Basically the old sea fortress built in 18th century, with the walls like 5 or 6 meters thick. And in that prison, that was a real prison already. I was, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, and I was basically in the same cell with the criminals, common criminals. I was the only political in there. So I learned very quickly that I just have to stay away from my troubles and see what other people are doing and not interfere into anything which doesn't concern me. So by doing so and defending myself against some attacks in the beginning, I basically won some kind of neutrality, or how to say it. But anyway, one day they took me from there, put me in a prison train, and sent me to St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg central prison called Kresty, which means crosses in English, because they look like a huge Russian Orthodox cross if you look at it from above, from skies. It's told that it was built during Katerina the Great time, I don't know. But anyway, this was the only prison in Soviet Union, which I saw, and I saw 6 of them, where they had toilet seats. And the story told that one of the famous Russian aircraft constructors, Tupolev, was held there during Stalin's regime for some time. And after the Stalin regime collapsed, he, from his own money, put toilet seats into that prison. I don't know, is it true or not, but that's a legend in that prison. So from that prison, actually I was again with the criminals for a couple of days, and I learned a lot from them, as one of them was Estonian. He was a hard-timer, and he was also waiting his time to be sent further from some labor camp. But anyway, they taught me a lot of things which were very useful afterwards, how to behave, and also how to behave with authorities. So from that prison, I was taken to prison in Sverdlovsk, again by train. The Russian prison train was one awful place. No any windows. One time a day you were allowed to go to toilet under guard. 2 soldiers were actually guarding you while you were sitting in a toilet. And it was only one time per day. And the food was roughly 1/4 of a bread, 1 herring, 1 piece of sugar, and 1 cup of tea. The water was free, but that was it. So before you were sent to a train, you got all the food for this trip. So you could count how many herrings there were you were issued. So many days you have to be on the road. So from Sverdlovsk, I was there roughly also maybe a week, 2, 3, don't remember anymore, but not long. I was sent to Krasnoyarsk, the same story, train again, the same shit in the prison, excuse my language. The food was awful. In all prisons the food was the same. In Russian, in Soviet, I think the same today. It was basically some kind of soup or some kind of pasta, which was, and that was it. And the bread, which was basically so wet that you could throw it into the sea up and it stayed there in the ceiling, never fell down. So I lost most of my teeth there because of that bad food. Afterwards, nowadays I got the new teeth when I still got independent again. But yes, on a train from Sverdlovsk to Krasnoyarsk and further to Irkutsk and to Chita, I had this 5 guys with me all the time, also in the prisons. They were common thieves, caught in St. Petersburg and sent back to Siberia where they committed the crimes. Basically they were sent to Vladivostok. I didn't know what they exactly did, I never asked, but I understood they were thieves. So, and they also taught me a lot of things, how to behave and how to act. So finally I made it back to Chita, and that was, I think, March or February, something like this. It was cold, all the way it was quite cold. But anyway, back in Chita, I was pushed into prison, and I think it was roughly 10 or 12 guys in this prison cell. One of them was also a sergeant from the same unit I was on. And he actually managed to kill one Uzbek guy during a fight. In the Soviet army, in those places I was, it was very common that there was a huge, I would say, mistrust, and actually they hated each other. And we called the white guys, which were the Christian guys, and then the Muslims, which were mainly Uzbeks, Kazakhs, Tajiks, stuff like this. And that was very common that in the evening in the barracks it was fight between those soldiers. So anyway, he was waiting for being court-martialed there. But I was sent to the investigator. So it means they took me out from prison, put me in a car, and drove me into the house where the military police, Russian military police, it was called actually military prosecution facility. They took me in there. And it was a very nice trip because it was not the ordinary prison guards who did it, but it was just the other soldiers, conscripts, who did it, who were guarding me on this vehicle. So, and when I got in that building, I was sitting in the office with a military investigator, First Lieutenant Aliyev, I remember his name still. He was from Kazakhstan. I have to say, he wasn't the brightest person in the world I've seen. His eyes were absolutely empty, like a Kazakh steppe. He didn't understand the thing. So I played a little bit fool. I explained him that I don't know any word in Russian except 5, which is hello, cigarettes, lawyer, tea, and please. And that was it. And they couldn't find, of course, a translator who can translate me the things in Chita. So I was sent back to prison. In a week time, I was taken out of prison again, and all this, you know, I did the same thing. And I was sent to prison again. And it happened 3 times before actually he managed to understand that I speak Russian fluently, because in this commercial marine college we had to speak in Russian. So, and I actually asked him why he didn't read my file. It was all in my file that I can speak Russian. So what happened next was he asked me why I escaped from army. And I said I never wanted to escape. I just wanted to go home to help my grandparents and then come back to an army. after the harvest is done. Of course, he didn't believe me. He understood that I'm just playing a fool, and I was beaten up and sent to the prison again, to the punishment cell. I spent 5 days there. I was taken out, sent back to this investigator, and he asked me, okay, will you talk now? And I said to him, yes, I will talk now. I actually had a secret mission from Estonian National Liberation Front. And this was the first time I saw some spark in this lieutenant's eyes. He probably imagined already that he's getting at least an order of Lenin or something like this for coaching a spy or a nationalist or whatever. And I explained to them that I had to count all the spoons in my unit. When I had to count the spoons, go back to Estonia and report it to the Estonian National Liberation Front, how many spoons are in our military unit. Estonian independence depends on that. So, of course, I was beaten up again and sent to this punishment cell again. And then, after 5 days, I was taken out from that punishment cell again into my normal cell. But at the meantime, while I was in this normal Chita prison, I made friends with other people, with those 12 guys who were sitting together. One of them was Listev Sergei. I think Sergei was his first name. Listev definitely was his last name because his nickname was Lisa, which is fox in English. And he was basically doing a contraband with the Chinese guys, because Chita is quite close to China. So we made quite good friends with him, because he was very interesting in life in the western part of Soviet Union, occupied Estonia. He had heard that we can see the Finnish TV, the free world TV in Estonia, and all this kind of stuff. So we made quite good friends. We changed addresses, we changed the friends' addresses, that if someone gets to somewhere we can communicate or send a word to our friends in freedom. So I was taken from my prison cell again, but this time I was ordered to take my things with me, and I didn't have very much belongings, but yes, it meant that I'll be sent somewhere away. So I was taken again to these military prosecution facilities, and this Lieutenant Aliyev took me to a colonel, an old man, a colonel, who was a prosecutor. And the idea was to, I didn't know, basically what Aliyev wanted was that I should be court-martialed. But this older guy, colonel, who probably was a prosecutor of this military district, explained to this Aliyev in very rough words, it was lots of F words in this speech he gave to this Aliyev, that basically he is an idiot. And by the Soviet laws, even by the Soviet laws, I cannot be court-martialed as I have not taken an oath, which means I'm officially not a soldier or member of an Soviet armed forces. So the only thing to do is to send me back to Estonia to a civilian court. and then the civilian court can indict me for refusing to serve in Soviet army. But as it was 1990 already, everybody understood that Estonian civilian court will not do that. So Lieutenant Aliyev got an order from this colonel: take me back to my unit and force me to take an oath. So Lieutenant Aliyev did exactly that. He delivered me to the military personnel, who took me into an old unit, but it was evening, late evening, and they had nothing to do with me. So they kept me in the headquarters. In the headquarters I saw my company commander, who was the only normal officer in Soviet army I've seen so far, except this colonel. But he was First Lieutenant Kushilevsky. He was from university, and somehow he had to serve 2 years as an officer in Soviet army, so I was not very keen about it. He saw me, he smiled and said hello, and he also yelled at the same time to one of the soldiers who was forced to work in headquarters building to clean the floors. He had misbehaved in somehow, and Lieutenant Kusilevsky, I remember, said to that guy, this guy was from Uzbekistan as well, he said that, look, this is Kapper. He is from Estonia. They hate us. They hate the Soviet Union. Of course, he does not want to serve with us. They have been a forest brothers. They have fought against us hardly, and that's understandable. But you, from Uzbekistan, what are you against? We brought you a culture and so on, which is of course not entirely the truth. They actually brought communism into that country, not the culture. But anyway, so I was, Kusilevsky went away. I was in this headquarters building, and I asked for toilet, and they said yes, go there and turn left, which I did. And I was there in the toilet, first floor, no bars, no guards. I opened the window and off I went again. And that was my second escape from the same place. And this time I was a little bit smarter. I actually went to those addresses Lisa gave to me, and next morning, and I communicate his friends. And in the beginning, of course they didn't believe me. They put me into the basement of a house, and I said, now I'm in deep trouble, because probably they will call police now. But they didn't. They kept me there, I think, roughly a day, and then they put me in a car and drove me away from this Chita city to a small village, to one old man whose name was Alexander Alexandrovich. And he was some kind of relative to Lisa. Anyway, he was an old man, an ex-Soviet army officer who was arrested during Stalin regime after the World War II for some political crimes or whatever. In those days they might have arrested him. Anyway, he didn't like the system at all. He was in the World War II, but he never fought against Germans. He fought in Far East against Japan, in Manchuria, in 45. So I lived there for some time, and while I was there, I wrote a letter to my friends in Pärnu and asked Lisa's friends to mail that letter so that they wrote the address in Russian, like they were writing this letter. And in letter I asked my friends to send me money. And the money could be sent in Soviet Union by those times by telegraph from a post office. Basically the same system like Western Union today, but it was just official post office. So I was there waiting for money to arrive. I was helping this old guy and his neighbor, who was a young Buryat girl. Basically, I think it was 2 or 3 people in the village at all. This Buryat girl, this old man, and probably somebody else whom I didn't see. But I helped them during their farm works and making wood for saunas and for the houses. And I think I spent 2 or 3 weeks there with the normal food again, with saunas, so I can wash myself. I remember from the prison I got lices, which are very disgusting small beasts. So I got a normal shower, a normal bath there in the sauna. The Buryat girl washed my clothes. Basically what she did, she boiled them to get away from lices. And so we had, I wouldn't say wonderful life, but at least it was nice time. And I got food again. And in the evenings we talked to this Alexander Alexandrovich, had some vodka. And I understood that the people there, the ordinary people like he was and like this Buryat girl, they don't like the system. One morning I saw the Buryat girl actually wearing a Soviet prison guard uniform, and I was scared to death. But she smiled and told that she was actually studying law in university, and they had to work in a prison or in some other place, like doing a practice or something like that. So, and actually she was the girl Lisa's friends asked about me. So that she asked in prison Lisa, and Lisa confirmed that I'm okay guy. And that was during this 24 hours was kept in basement in the beginning. Finally, the money arrived, and Lisa's friend, with help of Lisa's friends, I bought the counterfeit jeans, whatever stuff it was. It was absolutely counterfeit, but it looked like normal. It looked like a normal Levi's jeans. I bought normal shoes, normal clothes. I bought a ticket to Moscow on a train, and I went to train. They put me on a train after Chita. In some small places, the train stopped. I didn't know, did they speak to anybody or not? I didn't know, but anyway, I was on a train with a sleeping car, in a sleeping car. I had money to eat in a car, in a train restaurant, and my legend was that I'm actually a student from Tallinn school, this Marine College, which I actually studied before the army, and I was just doing my practice time in other part in Soviet Union, in Vladivostok, on fishing ships, and that was quite normal. This is what happened all the time to the guys, that they never were kept in the same place they were studying. They were sent to another place in Soviet Union to get practice on Russian or something like that. So everybody believed me, and I traveled to Moscow with no problems at all. In Moscow, I get there in the evening, and I had to go to another railway station to get the train to Tallinn. But interesting thing is that in the Soviet Union, whatever stupid system it was, totalitarian regime, they never checked your papers on the railway. When you already were in a train, no paper check. But they checked your papers in the evening from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock if you were in a railway station. So I couldn't be in a railway station in Moscow. So I had to walk around. I was a little bit scared, thinking that I might get caught in by police patrol in the middle of Moscow, and I was thinking where I had to stay overnight. But fortunately, the system had taken care of that, because in front of the railway station there were buses which were written on 1 ruble, and it was like a guided tour in Moscow during the night. So I took this 1 ruble, a guided tour in Moscow, which lasted about 3 hours. First, it was very interesting, 3 hours. And then I get back to the railway station. I changed the bus, went to another bus for another 6 hours, well, 3 hours. Actually, I slept those 3 hours. So, and I continued it until morning, when the police patrols were drawn away from railway station, and of course, no papers were checked again. The normal life started. It was like some kind of curfew in a railway station. I don't know why it was like this. Don't ask me. Communist system is a stupid system, but that was how it was. So what happened next was I bought a ticket to Tallinn, and I traveled to Tartu. I was afraid to go to Tallinn. I jumped out Tartu, which is our university city, and from there I went to Pärnu to my friends again. I lived there for a while, and then in late autumn of 1990, they started to form Estonian border guards, more or less underground. First with Estonian Defence League and border guards as a first military unit for the future Estonia, because everybody see that the end is coming close. So I joined them, and because I couldn't do anything else, as all my papers were in Soviet Army, I was still wanted man. I joined Estonian border guards, and in August 1991 I was with my platoon defending the Tallinn radio station, and I have been in Estonian Defence Forces since then, which is now about 30 years. I've dedicated my life to do everything, not to, let's say, I don't want this to happen again to my children. I don't want to lose this independence. I don't want to have this communist regime back. So I'm ready to do everything. I have done 30 years in military to defend my country against this communist regime. I've been in different deployments from Balkans to the war in Afghanistan with our allies, Danes, British and American Marines. And I still continue to do it as long as I have strength. And when I'm too old to be in the military, I find something else to fight against these totalitarian regimes like communism is. They are still there. They may have changed their clothes. They may have talk soft words and saying that this hard time communism is over, but don't believe them. They're still the same bastards. They will never change. They will never change. Thank you.